Welcome to the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. It's Sunday, little almost 6 p.m. Eastern time. Been a fun football weekend so far. Lots to talk about, and we're gonna try to make this a little more concise and not jump all over the place on this podcast. So we'll see how we do with it. But Clark, I'm thinking of changing the name of our show to Take the Points with exclamation points behind it because it doesn't seem to be something that NFL teams can do. Score. I don't know if any, just for reference, scoring is down in the NFL. It's the least amount of points scored per game since 2010. And, part of it is because of the refusal to kick field goals and wanting to go for it on fourth down all the time and all of this nonsense. So I find that very curious, Clark. But I was just saying, it seems like every single week we could just go, man, what is this guy doing? What is this guy doing in college and the NFL? Teams just want to go for it on fourth down instead of kicking field goals. And I'm watching the games today. I'm like, take the field goal. Like you're making this more difficult than it has to be, and it's like it's no surprise that scoring is down.
What games today were you saying that about? That they should have taken the points?
So, I mean, there was a game, the Buffalo was playing New England, and they were down by, I think they were down by 5. Yeah, it was 22-17. They were down by 5, and they had the ball down near the goal line, and they decided to, and I was like, just kick the field goal. New England doesn't have a good offense. You're probably going to get a stop. But as it turned out, Buffalo, not only they managed to score on that possession anyway. But I was thinking the same thing, I think it might have been earlier in the game when they were down, and I was just like, just take it. It's sitting right there for you. There was in the Cleveland Browns game, they decided to go for a fourth down at midfield. They didn't get it, gave the Colts the ball. The Colts went down and scored. Now, granted, I understand, the Colts lost the game anyway. Cleveland managed to win the game in the last second, but it just kind of just kind of blew my mind. There was a college game yesterday where Tennessee's playing Alabama, and they have Tennessee's got the ball. They're down 7. They're trying to get back into the game. They got the ball at midfield. 4th and 2, they go for it. They don't get it. Alabama goes down and scores and basically wins the game because of that. So it's just it's an epidemic, Clark, and it's absolutely out of control.
Yeah. Maybe I'm becoming numb to it because I keep seeing it all the time. And we talked about this. I think we talked about this the last podcast. Uh, I understand the idea. Well, if you want to win, you got to score touchdowns. Yes, but you don't have to score touchdowns on every single possession to win the game. You could, if you score 4 touchdowns and kick 3 field goals, you may be in pretty good shape to win the game. So, and then of course you get into the whole thing about going for it on fourth down at midfield, going for it in your own territory instead of punting, or, could you go for it on fourth down to, basically ice the game instead of punting the ball to the other team so they have to go down, all the way down the field to get a field goal or a touchdown to try to take the lead or to try to tie or take the lead. So, yeah, maybe I'm becoming numb to it now because they're just doing it all the time. And it's just, I'm the most mind-boggling thing to me is that this isn't a bigger story. Every now and then people talk about this, like when Brandon Staley does something really stupid, which seems to happen every single week. But even that, maybe people are becoming numb to it and they don't talk about it as much. But I'm still baffled. It's like, guys, how is this not a thing? You're just going, well, the analytics say, it's like last weekend when the Commanders were playing the Falcons, and the Falcons score a touchdown to make it 24-16, and they go for 2. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't care what statistics tell you to go for it there. Like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, if you get it, fine. But if you don't get it, then it's like, well, we got to score and we got to get a 2-point conversion now. It's not like, well, it's the last play of the game. If we get a 2-point conversion here, we win the game. So I just, what the hell are we? It's literally, it's one of these things where people are literally, it's like they have a script about what they're supposed to do in these situations, and that's it. They don't apply any more thinking to it than that. It's just, well, this is what we do. And it's like, oh, it gives me a better chance to win. Yeah, maybe. But like, really, you're going to do all this because, well, it gives me a 7, 10, 15% better chance to win the game. It's like, okay, but you guys keep doing this stuff and losing the game. So does that factor into any of this at all? Is there any sense of like, hey, maybe in this situation, I'm not going to go for it? But, again, people just, they just sort of dismiss it. It's kind of like the same thing when you try to, if you're watching football with somebody and you try to explain to them why challenging that play was a stupid idea, right? And they'll say, well, you have another challenge. Yeah, but, you just got that one wrong. You have one more challenge for the rest of the game. You don't get a third one unless you get the first two right. So then it's like, and you try to explain this to people, and they're just like, well, you still got another one. It's like, no, dude, you can't. The NFL games are really close. One little, a few mistakes, that's it. You lose the game. So it's, yeah, again, that's probably the most mind-boggling part to me, other than the fact that these coaches are just making boneheaded decisions week after week.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't get to, we haven't been on in a while, so we didn't get to talk about this. But the Oregon Washington game from last weekend, that was super
Right.
infuriating because Oregon just completely screws it up at the end of the half. They have the ball down near the goal line. There's 6 seconds left. They don't really have enough time to do anything else. They decide that's it. We're going to go for it. And if we don't, we don't care if we don't get it. And and the thing is with those, it was like the play calls where we're just going to do a sprint out with the quarterback. And it's like after it didn't work the first time, they kept trying it, and so they didn't score. But the thing is, Oregon basically, they had that game in their hand. And in games where the thing is, you have to take into account who you're playing, what the stakes are, right? In a game like that, where it's going to be back and forth and it's going to be close because you're playing a team that's at your level. You're playing another team that's really good. Oregon just basically gave away 6 points they could have easily had by going for it on fourth down at the end of the half in the third quarter. And then at the end of the game, they decided to go for the fourth down to win the game. I actually have less of a problem with going for it at the end of the game to try to win it, because if you got the fourth down, the game's over. I have less of a problem with that than I do the other two. So if you had kicked field goals on the other two and gone for it at the end, I would have been fine with it. But granted, you wouldn't have had to do that because you would have still had the lead. So I just think that the idea, and then the idea, like after the game, I'm hearing, everybody saying, well, I'm glad that Dan Lanning, that's Oregon's coach, he was consistent. I appreciate the consistency. It's like, it doesn't do any good to be consistent. Like, you should never do the same thing in every single situation. Like, that doesn't apply. That's not how life works. You don't go, well, anytime this happens, I'm going to do this. There are very few things that are universal. It depends on who's involved, what the circumstances are, what are the consequences, all of those things should play into it. So every fourth down decision isn't, oh, well, it's a number in a book and you just go by the numbers. They're all different. And I was reading this tweet from Mike Lombardi. He's like, analytics don't take into account who's on the field. The players on the field are much more important than any number that you can give. So I don't know how many teams. Now, Oregon lost that game, and listen, it's not the end of the world that Oregon lost that game, but it's just a game you had a perfect opportunity to win. And the season is going to come down to, not so much in college, but getting to the playoff or something like that. It's going to come down to another game like that. And you just kind of toss one to the side that you could have easily had if you made a couple of different decisions. I don't think, and I agree with you, the criticism is not harsh enough. Nobody's saying, like, people aren't saying anything. Like, it's just, most of the people were like, well, yeah, I get it. I'm glad that he, and the ex-football players are always like, oh, he was aggressive. I'm glad he supported his team. And I'm just like, you lost. Like, I hate to be, I hate to be ridiculous about this, but you should be held accountable for those decisions. So I don't know what else I can say about it. These teams, we watch this every single week in the NFL. Teams lose games because they just refuse to take. They don't like 3 points. They hate it. They're allergic to it. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I see in the future like somebody absolutely ruining themselves and getting fired, or their team losing in the playoffs because of stupid nonsense like that.
Right. And so with the Oregon thing, the only thing I'll add to what you're saying is, so let me get this straight. And Dan Lanning, the coach at Oregon, he has a history with this. They were playing Oregon State last year. He went for on fourth down 5 times and was 0 for 5. You'd think after the 4th try, you'd be like, well, maybe we shouldn't, or maybe we need to rethink what we're calling on this. Like, you're telling me you couldn't get the first down 3 previous times and you think you're going to get it on the 4th time? And also, they kept, like you said, in the game against Washington, they kept rolling out the quarterback. Well, you just eliminated half the field. What? I'm almost getting numb to it because I'm just like, how are you guys not seeing this? Like, this is, again, people are like, well, I want them to be aggressive. Don't you just want to win the game? There's times to be aggressive. There's times to be conservative. There's times to just kick the field goal or punt the damn ball. And it's like, oh my God, we only got 3 points. It's like, can we think about this from the other perspective? Okay. Oregon at the end of the first half last week. Okay. They're going for it to try to get anything. Instead of getting any points at the end of the half, you get 0. Okay. Do you think that the other team, that makes the other team feel good, doesn't it? Because like, oh, well, they could have got points there. They didn't. And it's like, oh, well, we might have been a little disappointed that we didn't get a touchdown. Yeah, but you still got 3 points. You can say that going into halftime. Like, you guys forget this. It's like, well, if you go for it and you don't get it, like you were saying, the last time we talked about this, that's a turnover. Okay?
Yeah.
And, again, yeah, I mean, you go for it, you don't get it, you can swing the momentum to the other team. And sometimes that's all it takes, like a couple plays, and then the other team starts playing really well, and you've just swung the game because you made a boneheaded decision. So, I'm sure we'll keep talking about this until we're blue in the face. But.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Oregon would have had a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter if they had just kicked those 2 field goals. They would have had a 10-point lead. They probably win the game. Yeah, Washington goes down and scores once, but they would have had to go again. Like, it just kind of blows my mind. Just collect the points. Like, it's not going to be like, and so I don't know what teams are afraid of. I don't know what the deal is, how it's become okay to lose games because of this, but yeah, we're going to be on this for a little while. Moving on to the games.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Let me just one more thing. The other thing people need to consider is you have a limited number of possessions in a game. Okay. So remember, you're like, oh, I want to go for it. Well, if you go for it like 4 or 5 times and you don't get it, and you don't get any points when the points are right there, you've just hurt your team. So anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about this more in the future. But
yeah, no, there's an absolute efficiency to it, and the other thing is like you said, you're going for it multiple times in a game. Teams don't have a whole bunch of plays to go for it on 4th down that they like. So if you're going for it throughout the game, by the time you get to the 4th quarter, you don't have any plays left. So I think that's what people are missing about this, especially in college where you only have 17 hours a week to actually practice. Like, you don't have, college teams do not have unlimited amounts of plays that they can use. Once you get past the good ones, then you're using your worst plays the rest of the game. So it's just, it's asinine. We'll see what happens. We'll see who screws it up later. I'm sure Brandon Staley will pull something today because they're in a battle with the Chiefs right now.